Welcome everyone to the CDFA Hotline. We are very excited to be here with you today. We thought we'd switch up our format a little bit and give our certified divorce financial analyst, as well as the general public, a format to ask questions about divorce and the divorce process. We're hoping this hotline will generate some discussion that you'll find helpful. The purpose of our show is to provide general information as it relates to divorce and to showcase how Certified Divorce Financial Analyst can help you. My name is Kristen Sharon. I'm the Director of Education for the Institute of Divorce Financial Analysts. I'm also a practicing family law attorney in North Carolina, a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, and a Certified Family Financial Mediator in North Carolina. While we're going to be answering some questions from CDFA's perspective and for the general public about divorce and finances, we cannot offer personalized financial or legal advice. The reason for this is because each divorce situation is so specific. There are so many factors that may impact your particular situation, such as state-specific statutes and guidelines. We're going to answer questions generally and hope to steer you towards resources, information, and professionals that may help you. Nothing you hear today on this show should be construed as legal advice, financial advice, or tax advice. I really cannot emphasize that enough. Please do not consider anything you hear on the show today as a reason not to seek advice that is specific to your individual situation and geographical area, as that can vary wildly. This show is educational, it's not advisory, and we do, however, hope to provide you with some great information and resources that you can hopefully use to point yourself in the right direction and to get your divorce on the right path that works for you. For this episode, we had people email in questions through the Institute for Divorce Financial Analyst website. You can find lots of great information on our website, which is www.institutedfa.com. You can also find search for Certified Divorce Financial Analyst on that website. We are working to reorganize this section so it's also searchable by specialty, so keep an eye out for that as change is hopefully coming soon. And we'll also have a link for anyone who wants to submit questions for our next episode at the end of this episode. My co-host today is John Duffy. John Duffy is a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst in California. His belief in the value of service extends to his personal and professional life, where he strives to assist others through their personal journeys. Having gone through his own divorce in 2006, John understands the complexities of such transitions. Despite challenges, including co-parenting 2 young daughters, he emerged from this experience with a deep empathy for those navigating a similar path. This led him to establish Zen Divorce Solutions to provide financial guidance and support for couples and individuals facing divorce. Professionally, John is a member of various industry organizations, such as serving as an ambassador for the Institute of Divorce Financial Analysts, a board member of the Collaborative Practice of California, and a member of the International Academy of Collaborative Professionals. Here, I'll just stop and re-say that. Okay. Professionally, John is a member of various industry organizations, such as serving as an ambassador for the Institute of Divorce Financial Analysts, board member of Collaborative Practice of California, and a member of the International Academy of Collaborative Professionals. He contributes to these groups through participation in focus groups, speaking engagements, podcasts, and authoring blogs. We're really excited to have you here as our co-host today, and I'm super excited to try out this new format. So our first question today is from Sarah. Sarah says, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 15 years while my husband built a successful career. Now that we're divorcing, I'm worried about my financial future. I don't have a career, I haven't contributed to retirement accounts, and I don't even know where to start when it comes to negotiating a fair settlement. What should I be thinking about to ensure financial security?
Yeah, that's a good question. That is, a lot of people are in a very similar situation. There is this natural tendency for wives to kind of divide the chores, and somebody's kind of that stay-at-home parent and has sacrificed a career. Somebody's continued to earn money and increase their income over the years. And it's understandable that you're going to have a lot of concerns as that person that's home. You don't have as much information about the finances. The divorce process is designed, and it's unique in each state, but by and large, it's designed to make sure that the playing ground is level. You each have to kind of disclose. Most states have a formal disclosure process. It's called a lot of different things, but you're going to list all of your assets and debts and your income and expenses on this. So this is, even when you don't have access to the financial information or the accounts, perhaps you can get it from your spouse's disclosure documents. So you'll have a sense of the finances. And there's usually some penalty of perjury sort of acknowledgement that you're going to be making and your spouse is going to be making when presenting this information. So they are swearing that they're transparently disclosing everything. Topic for a whole nother conversation, I guess. What happens if they don't? But sticking to this, there are two basic processes that happen with divorce. You're going to identify what is the stuff that we have together and how do we divide it, whether it's a community property estate where you're going to split it in half or an equitable distribution where you're going to be, there are some other factors that can come into it, but usually it is also kind of a 50-50 division of that stuff. So that's going to include things like retirement accounts and checking and savings and any investment accounts. So even if you weren't directly contributing to retirement, you will receive the benefit of all of the assets that were created during the marriage. The debts as well, and different states deal with those differently. So you'll also then have a discussion about income sharing and child support and spousal support, sometimes also called alimony. That will be a way to also try to, for a period of time at least, varies from state to state, help ensure that you have some runway to continue living as you had been, as close as you can to the kind of marital standard of living that had been established, with the caveat that you are now taking usually one household and dividing it into two. So you're duplicating housing expenses. But support is there designed so that you have some time to perhaps kind of dust off your resume, get your skills back up, start working towards some, and of course, again, a lot of different individual circumstances. If you have special needs children, if you have young children, that might just not be feasible. So the goal of this is to provide you with the resources that you need for a duration of time that you need. Might not be exactly what you want, but you'll have an opportunity to really kind of weigh in on what are your needs, and helping to understand them is the role that a CDFA can provide, helping you understand what your financial needs might be and give you some options that you could think about and ask about when you're getting into how do we divide the stuff and what's the income sharing going to look like.
You are so right. And Sarah, all I would say is, that this is a really common concern. And if you don't know where to start when it comes to negotiating a fair settlement, that's okay. I would just recognize that you need some help, and fine too. I think that anytime you have a spouse that's simply not familiar with finances or feeling uncertain of this process, it can be overwhelming. And so I think that you're someone that don't try to go walk this path alone, and go ahead and seek the professionals that do this every day and can help explain this process to you. And I think certainly certified divorce financial analyst, an attorney, go seek out a professional that can advocate for you and help educate you so that you can be empowered to walk this path and that you feel better about it, and recognize that you don't know about your finances. A lot of people don't, and don't be ashamed of that. So go and seek some help, and best of luck to you. All right, next question.
All right. Mark wrote in, he says, I've worked my entire life to build up my retirement savings, and now that I'm getting divorced, I'm afraid I'm going to lose half of it. I know my 401k and pension are considered marital property, but are there strategies for negotiating a settlement that lets me keep more of my retirement funds? I'd rather not have to delay retirement just because of the divorce. Kristen, what do you think?
So, Mark, I think that you're someone that has gone online and has some preconceived ideas about what will happen in a divorce. And I would just caution anybody about doing that. Every single divorce looks different, and single divorce is unique. So, before you say something like, I know this is marital property, go and get a consultation with an attorney and talk about your overall concerns. Make sure that you do understand what marital and separate property is as it applies to you and your particular situation. After you have done that, then start making assumptions about your case. And until you do that, I really caution anyone to not compare their divorce to their friend's divorce. Don't listen to what your friend said. Go online and get some general information. That's fine, but don't make assumptions about what will or will not happen. That being said, your assets are likely to be marital, and you are likely to have to pay your spouse one half of them. Whether you like that outcome or not, your spouse is entitled to one half of your marital assets. Now, can you do certain things to help you keep more of your retirement funds and less of maybe a different asset? Absolutely. And that's where you need to talk to a certified divorce financial analyst about what that might look like. What could I offer in exchange to keep more of my retirement if that's something that's important to you? There are absolutely strategies out there that will help you, but they're going to be very various to what other assets you own and what other assets can be utilized to offset that. So again, there are people out there that do this every single day for a living and are more familiar with those strategies and those ideas than you will ever be. And so seek out those resources. Don't try to walk this path alone. If that is very important to you, which it should be, because you worked really hard to save your estate and to save your retirement assets. If that's what is important to you and that's what you want to fight for, then go and talk to someone about what that might look like for you. And so, that's really my only advice. Stop making assumptions about your case and go and get the answers from somebody that has worked those strategies in the past.
Yeah, good person. I think from what I've seen very often, if you think about instead of dividing everything in half, really, what you kind of do is you put all of it into a pot, and then you each kind of work on picking out the things that you want or need. If you own a home, what often happens is if one spouse is going to keep the home, the other large asset that's usually used to offset that are retirement accounts. And so if your spouse would like to keep the home and it works for them, either they can assume the mortgage, they can qualify for the refinance, and they can afford the refinance. You might just by the order of that have then more retirement accounts. You might be keeping some or all of your retirement accounts. You mentioned a pension that is an asset, but it's also an income stream. So some people really want to keep their pension so that they can retire on time. Other people, if they might be further away from retirement age, they might divide that pension in some way, and then they can continue to build back their portion, what their monthly benefit will be when they retire later. So there's just so much flexibility in this, especially depending on how the two of you are working together and negotiating and what the tenor of this situation is in your process, that there can definitely be win-win situations. It doesn't always feel like that, and sometimes it may feel like it's kind of you're both compromising, for sure. But divorce does not have to mean that your is delayed, but like Kristen said, having those financial professionals or other roles to help you understand what your financial future may look like and do some projections for you, and all of those sorts of that analysis that can be helpful to you to make an informed decision. Sounds like that would be helpful to you.
All right. Olivia wants to know. She said, I initially went through mediation, but my spouse is a narcissist and refuses to negotiate in good faith. Every conversation turns into a battle and I'm exhausted. Are there alternative approaches to settlement that don't involve full blown litigation, but also don't require me to constantly compromise with someone who won't be reasonable?
Yeah, good question, Olivia. So, and there's a perfect opportunity to kind of talk briefly about the different divorce processes. You are probably all familiar with litigation. You've seen it on TV. You've probably maybe even experienced it in your own family, your baby. Um, that's not the only way that one can get divorced. Most of you probably also are familiar with mediation, and that's really when there is, at the core of it, there is one person there as a neutral, facilitating a conversation between the two of you to help you both come to agreements as to what you want to do with all this stuff. They're not really there to weigh in. They might be willing to kind of discuss how, if this were to go to litigation in your state, what this would look like potentially, just to give you some so you can make decisions. Um, but that's not it. And so in addition to that kind of single mediator, you can also then add the other professional roles. We've talked about, and we are certified divorce financial analysts. I can't say we're not a little bit biased towards that as a role that would be helpful to you. But there's also, you can have divorce coaches, you can have communication specialists. I mean, you can bring in, if you need an appraisal for the house or a collection. I mean, there's so many different things that you can get help for, real estate, lending, et cetera. Another approach is called collaborative, and this is an approach where it you with a full team. You will each have an attorney. There will be a financial neutral, and depending on your state and kind of how it's practiced locally, you might have one or two coaches, one for each of you, or just one as a neutral. This can be, the attorneys are not the one driving the negotiation as often happens in litigation, and there is no judge. This is going to be more similar to mediation, but you've got a team in place right away to support you who understand that you're trying to solve this very complex issue. Your narcissistic spouse will have their own attorney, and you will have your own attorney that you can work with. The attorneys understand that they are there to help settle this for both of you and help you come to agreements. So they're going to work with those personality challenges. We in the divorce industry see that personality type a lot, and so it's something that we are familiar with, and we're not charmed by somebody who, you know, you've some work that magic on other people. We understand what's going on to the degree that, you know, we can get through this in a way that's very respectful, and you know, we can work with that personality. But at the end of the day, we need to find something that works well for both of you. And if you don't feel comfortable negotiating with your spouse directly, if you feel like, again, they always get the upper hand because of that charming personality, collaborative might be something you want to take a look at as a way to really get the support that you need from a team that with that sort of personality regularly and can help you find something that you find agreeable that you can go forward with.
All very, very true. If you feel like your spouse was difficult during your marriage, you're probably right. They're going to also be difficult during the divorce process. They don't all of a sudden flip their switch in this very difficult and challenging situation. So you're right to anticipate that, and you're right to have those fears. But to echo what John said, we do deal with that personality type all the time. We all have training in how to deal with difficult people in these really challenging situations. And what the process does, what John was saying, the collaborative process, that takes away a certain amount of their power because they are forced into this um, process and that they have to participate in a certain way. So I collaborative is a really, really for a narcissist personality. The other one that I really like for a narcissist personality is arbitration. And arbitration is where you select your own private judge, and that can be, an attorney that you hire to be your decision maker. And I really do like the arbitration process because it's a lot more comfortable than the courthouse. You can schedule it at a time that's convenient for you. You can spend as much time as you need to make sure that the arbitrator understands the issues and the facts that you want them to understand. You can relax the rules of evidence in the arbitration process if that's what you choose to do. And then that arbitrator has final decision making authority, just the exact same way that a judge would. And what you do is you enter into a contract that says, we are going to allow this person to make this decision for us and we're going to be bound by it. And so you can arbitrate for even a single issue. And so I really like that, to say like, all right, well, we've negotiated to this point. I really feel like there's nothing more that I want to give. I really feel like I'm going to be taken advantage of if I give any more. And so, you know what? We've only got this one piece left. We can't reach an agreement on this decision. All right, we're going to have a third party arbitrate it and we're going to be bound by it. And that's another way to take power away from a narcissist. That I'm a big fan of arbitration. And I think it can be great. And then you can have somebody like your certified divorce financial analyst come and for you at that hearing, or your other professionals, your appraisers and things like that. So I think the way to take away power from a narcissist is to really have more professionals in that pool because it's something that you can't handle by yourself.
Yeah, well said. Michelle writes in and says, my ex-husband is self-employed and underreports his income to avoid paying higher child support and alimony. He claims he barely makes enough to get by, but I know for a fact he's making significantly more. What options do I have for proving his real income, and how you typically handle cases where one spouse manipulates their earnings? What do you think, Kristen?
Well, it's not uncommon, and
Yeah.
it's not even legal. And in a lot of cases, you're allowed to manipulate your income because of certain business expenses that you're allowed to funnel through your business. Some people take advantage of that to an extent where it kind of crossed that line. But a lot of times, things that they're doing are perfectly legal to lower their income. So my answer to that is, you can't do it yourself. You When you have a tax return that has a certain number listed for their income, you need someone that can come in and into those receipts. So it's absolutely not something that you can prove by yourself, but is it something that a professional can prove and easily? Yeah. It's not even that hard. But you need the data to go through, and you need a professional to go through the data, and then you need that professional to be able to testify about that data. And so you're aware that your spouse is underreporting his income, and that's great. Then you have a lot of information that you can point the professional that you hire, to say, hey, look, I know that these things are happening, or I know that he's got these contracts, or I know that, you know, we have a lifestyle that's 300, we have a $300,000 lifestyle and we have $50,000 income. Well, it's obvious that you have additional income. So your knowledge is wonderful, and you can share that with the professionals that you hire. But it's absolutely not something that you can do by yourself. You're going to need a certified divorce financial analyst or a CPA to go through that and be able to show what his actual income numbers are, because it's not something he's going to admit to, and what your opinion on that doesn't have any more weight than his either. So that's why you simply can't do it on your own.
Yeah, agreed. This sounds like this is a sort of situation where you're maybe looking at litigation or in litigation, and that might be the most appropriate place here for that. Sometimes, though, if your spouse and you are communicating well, and this sounds like he's intentionally trying to reduce his support and things like that. Some spouses recognize that push pull between spousal support and child support, and so really reminding them that this is for the benefit of your kids, that your collective kids and your family. Um, Sometimes you can come up with numbers that maybe aren't what the calculator says based on the income that's being reported. Maybe the two of you can find a compromise there of recognizing that you might need a little bit more, and that your spouse is willing to pay that when they really kind of step back and recognize that this is so much of this income sharing discussion can cause anger and frustration. But if the spouse has an opportunity to step back and reassess really what is this for, and how do I want to be there as a dad or as a mom, I think that that's something that you might be able to negotiate without having to get so into the weeds on income and what sort of perks are allowable expenses for a business and which ones where they cross over into personal. So get some help. Yeah, and good luck.
Yeah, and also sometimes just the idea that a professional is going to be poking around in their income and their books and how they structure things can sometimes be enough, like John said, to negotiate a different outcome. But you're going to need that professional, at least back here in the wings, that you can kind of pull out and go, well, do you want to negotiate with me and reach this resolution, or do you want them? And don't forget that this is time, effort, and expense for your spouse as well. And so, we all things that they'd rather do. So you just need to make that compromise more attractive by showing them how much time, effort, and money that they can save by not going through that process. But then be prepared to go through that process if you need to. And here's the thing about certified divorce financial analysts is that they're they're much lower than attorneys, and don't necessarily have the threat of litigation behind them. So, you can take some tax returns into a certified divorce financial analyst and have them look at um, some information and say, well, do you have maybe like a range that you think my spouse could potentially be earning, and is it worth it to spend the additional money and resources to dig into this? And most certified divorce financial analysts can look at something simple like tax returns pretty quickly and go, yeah, there's more here. No, I mean, this looks about right. And you into that. So you don't have to guess. I would say that's my advice. Don't guess. The money that you spend trying to get the answers is usually well worth the either spending too much money going down the wrong road, or money well spent because you get the outcome that you need. And so there's a way to get that information before diving in that pond. Chris says, my divorce has been dragging on for 2 years, and I feel like my lawyer and my spouse's lawyer are just fighting over every single little thing without making progress. How do I take control of the situation and push for a resolution without compromising too much on what I deserve?
Interesting question. So court calendars sometimes just are what they are. And if you're going through litigation, you are going to be subject to the court's calendars. And unfortunately, that's just going to be part of that process. So there's a certain amount of time that you won't have much control over. This, though, sounds like it's been going on a little bit longer, probably than we would need to, and what maybe an efficient divorce might look like. Your attorney's litigation kind of end up taking control in the way, they're looking out after your best interests. Hopefully they're on a strategy to get you what you have expressed an interest in, and to have, and they believe you should have. But they're also going to spend a lot of time going back and forth on things, and sometimes maybe it's not stuff that you care about, and in the meantime you're paying for all of that time. So like Kristen was saying, there's this value, cost benefit sort of analysis, and what is the actual value that you get for the money that you're spending. You can definitely talk to your attorney and say, I feel like, strategically, or kind of what I'm hearing you go after, or maybe things that I don't feel like we really need to. You can also say, let's really work on putting together a proposal, and maybe, rather than waiting through this court process to its completion and have the judge decide on things, you can still work on trying to find um, the situation where the two of you can come to an agreement. So I would say that you have an opportunity, work with your attorney on this strategy. Don't things without their knowledge, but let them know that, as this has gone on, maybe you become more clear. Maybe your spouse has become more clear on what it is that you are with, and you want to try to end it as best as you can, and not spend more time in court. And you present information to your spouse that can agree to, and you can get off of that merry-go-round.
Yeah, I think you can, if you're feeling that way, there's a really good chance that your spouse is feeling that way too. And I know at that point, there's probably so much hurt and anger that you don't necessarily want to reach out to them, but either having your attorney do it, or you do it, there comes a point in litigation where everyone's ready for it to be over. And if you're at that point, there's a really good chance that they're there as well. And it might be a good time to say, listen, we don't even have a court date yet. Let's just all go back to mediation, because at that point, everyone's tired of. Um, in terms of your lawyers fighting over every little thing, uh, I would just really encourage you to ask more questions to your attorney about what it is that they're arguing about and why. So there are some litigation rules that we're required to follow. There are some strategic things that they may be doing, and make sure that they're explaining that to you so that you understand. And finally, just remember that they work for you. So there are things that as attorneys we're required to respond to, and your attorney's not going to compromise on those things. There are deadlines that we need to meet, and your attorney's not going to compromise on those things. But there are a lot of other things that are within your control because you're the client and they work for you. And so making sure that you have that open dialogue with your attorney, and making sure that you're able to have those conversations with them about your case, because it's your case, this is your life. um, you and your attorney should be partners in this process. And if you're not getting that from your attorney may not be the right attorney for you. Yeah, and Chris, this is a little too late for you because you're 2 years in and this has been dragged out. But for anyone else who has not yet entered into this process, you know, really checking with to make sure that you have an attorney that is really going to be a good fit for you and is going to try to resolve this case um, in in a way that benefits you and is true to how you want to handle this process. And asking a lot of questions about that. And and a really way to find out who is a good attorney in your town is to go and see a divorce coach or a certified divorce financial analyst before you hire an attorney, because we work with all the attorneys in town. We know them all. We know who settles cases. We know who's a litigator. So reach out to somebody who is not a divorce attorney first and talk to them. Go, who have you worked with? There are real estate professionals that work with divorce attorneys. You find another professional in your town that works in the divorce area that can recommend an attorney. Don't hire the attorney that you found on Facebook or the one that your neighbor used. Go and be really mindful about the attorney that you hire, and then ask them for a list of attorneys that they also like to work with. And then maybe hand that list to your spouse and say, hey, spouse, listen, here's a list of attorneys that I've heard are really good. At least would you be willing to check them out? And then finally, check out the collaborative law website in your area, because all of those attorneys are going to be settlement minded. And so those are attorneys that are going to want to and appraisers to resolve disputes. They're going to want to involve certified divorce financial analysts to tell us what the income numbers are or what this asset division looks like, tax wise, and going to welcome those professionals to help resolve those disputes rather than filing motions in court that don't necessarily go anywhere. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a place for that, and sometimes something needs to be litigated. But if you have an attorney that you and works with you and listens to you, that's really important, having that connection. And so if you feel like your case has been taken over by your attorney, you're not feeling heard, that might not be the right attorney for you. And that's okay. It's okay to switch attorneys, even if you have been utilizing the same one for a period of time. Better to get out sort of now rather than to let it go on for longer just because you feel like you've invested too much money, when another attorney could come along and possibly look at it differently and stop the bleeding, or recommend a different approach. Or just call up at this point. I just bite the bullet and call up your spouse and say, hey, listen, I'm done. Are you done? Maybe let's go to mediation. And you might be surprised.
Yeah, and just to build on something Kristen said, the chemistry with you and your attorney is really important, but also thinking through stylistically your attorney and the approach and maybe how that is going to set the tone for all the negotiations. If you are consulting with somebody who's not an attorney ahead of time, like Kristen said, a real estate professional or a CDFA or a certified divorce lending professional, and say to them, I'm expecting to get a divorce, and they're probably going to ask you, like, what is your approach? Like, how are the two of you working together? And maybe you really want to need somebody who's going to be, that like the shark or the bulldog or whatever that kind of is, to really be there for you. But maybe you want to work through something. You don't think it's going to be too terribly complex, too conflict driven, but you just are seeking out this path. Your attorney might really set the tone for that. One attorney might open things up with a ton of discovery and subpoenas and all of these sorts of things that put your spouse on their back heels and make it hard to negotiate. Others might have a softer approach, but they can absolutely be there to represent your rights, and take care of you. So be very mindful of who you're hiring. Lisa writes in, she says, I have been divorced for a year now, and I thought I'd feel more settled by now, but I just feel stuck. I don't know how to move forward and create a new life for myself. Do you have any advice on how to rebuild my identity and confidence after a divorce?
That's a hard one, and one that you might be in a better place to answer.
Yeah, I do see this a lot, or kind of have this feedback sometimes from clients. I'd like to check in on clients kind of down the road a little bit and see how things are going, see if everything's happened the way that they expected to, that financial accounts got divided the way they were supposed to, and just how are you doing? Like, as a financial professional, I'm with you through a very challenging time of your life. Maybe one of you, maybe both of you, that I might be working with, and so I invested. I'm invested in you as people, not only as clients. So I do see this every now and then. And what I would say is it's also not uncommon. You you spend so much time kind of working through this process, and then all of a sudden you kind of come through the other side, and now what? Um, it's an opportunity for you to really rediscover who you were, who you want to be. Reinvent yourself. There's a lot of if you approach this with the way that you recognize that you are now no longer defined by who you were as a couple, but who you are as an individual, you might realize that you are excited about all of the opportunities that lie in front of you. Um, you might want to get back into hobby that you had before. You might want to get involved with some affinity groups. You really like hiking, find some people in your area who go hiking. Get into yoga. All of these positive things that you can do, and sometimes connecting with other people who like doing the same things that you do might be a really easy way to start getting back out there and finding some joy. Um, it's hard when you have been dependent, codependent with somebody, however that looked in your relationship, and now you are independent, and there's a lot of responsibility that goes on with that you might not have felt prepared for, and you want help. And there are professionals who can probably help you with all of that. Um, but you might also, work with a therapist. This process, divorce, is incredibly emotionally charged. There's no way around that. Even if it's amicable, it's really hard. You're the death of a relationship. You're the death of what could have been. So you're going through this grief process, and so you should anticipate feeling all of those things, and you should allow for them to happen when appropriate. You might not want to try to stifle the cries when you're on your way to somewhere with the kids, but recognizing that you time that you should be able to address these feelings is really important, and a mental health professional can really be beneficial for you in working through some of these complex emotions that you will have during the divorce process and after the divorce process. I look back at my own divorce and I feel like I was kind of in a fog for probably about 3 years. Um, got through it somehow, did all the things, went to work, but I don't really remember a whole lot of it. So your brain is definitely affected by this process, and I would encourage you to get some help.
Great advice. We have time for one more question, and this is from Laura, who's the CDFA. And she says, um, one challenge I often see is clients who get emotionally attached to keeping the house, even when it's not financially feasible. What strategies can we use to help clients make smarter financial decisions instead of emotional ones?
Yeah, great question. This is something we see all the time, and this is one of those early questions, really. Somebody identifies that the house is something they want to hold on to. There are a couple different layers to this. One of them I would say is analyze why it is that you want the house. Is it simply because you want that security and safety? This is a familiar place. You want the continuity for your kids. You want them to be in the same neighborhood. This is maybe something that's important to both of you. Both of you want one of you to keep the home. I see that very often. Um, or is it simply that you just want a place where you feel secure? Maybe the house is full of a lot of memories that as the time goes on, you're going to not feel comfortable with. So there's that component of it. And then there is a component of, can I stay here? Um, you are really going to truly be kind of taking over the house and there's a mortgage on it. There are a couple questions that need to happen first. And I think I mentioned these before. You need to find out if you can, what's called assume the mortgage, kind of take it on with the terms, the monthly payment and the duration the same as it is. Your mortgage provider would be able to answer that question for you. If not, then it's a matter of, okay, it's going to trigger refinancing. And if that occurs, can I qualify for the mortgage? If you can't on your own, maybe you have parents who can co-sign for you. Um, can I then afford the monthly payments? And that I think is where really there's a role called a certified divorce lending professional who can help you out with a lot of the questions about the house. And I really enjoy working with the CDLPs early in the process to get some of these big questions answered. Because if you keeping the house is going to change the mortgage from 2,500 a month to 4,500 a month, we want to know that right away. And we want to be able to plan around that, not get to the end of the planning, make the assumption that this is all going to work out fine, and then find out we got to start back at square one. So there's so much complexity with that house. And there are a lot of different ways that you can work around it. Again, if you're working through mediation or collaborative or anything like that, you both might agree that, while one person's going to move out, they're going to stay on the mortgage and title for a period of time so that maybe you have community assets that you can use to pay down the mortgage so that you can then qualify for it. Maybe you want to wait until they're better. Who knows when that'll be, but sometimes agreements can be written so that you're both going to stay on for a period of up to a year or 2 years. Obviously, it's got to work for both of you, but there are a lot of kind of out of the box solutions that we as CDFAs have seen and with other professionals to say for couples who are trying to work through something. If you're going through litigation, you might just be forced to sell a house, and that doesn't work for either of you. So the process can really inform your choices sometimes. And so just be aware of what your needs and wants are before you really get too far down the road in any particular process that might limit your choices.
Yeah, and the only other thing that I would say, Laura, is as a CDFA professional, don't own that decision. It's not your decision. It's your job to show the client, look, if you keep the house, this is what your budget looks like. This is what your assets will look like, and this is what it's going to look like 5 years or 10 years down the road if you choose to keep the house. If you choose to sell the house, this is what it will look like, and this will be your budget. And that scenario may be infinitely a decision. Just understand that sometimes clients are going to make an emotional decision, and they need to make that decision for whatever reasons that they feel like they need to make it. And that's okay. It's your job to show them the different scenarios and to lay it out and out real numbers. And then it's their decision to make a bad choice sometimes. And often they make bad decisions. Sometimes your clients are not going to make the decisions that you would want them to make. But it's not your life, it's their life. And as long as they're making an informed decision, let them. That's okay. And a lot of times they're going to be fine with it. They're going to be perfectly happy with that decision that doesn't make a ton of financial sense because that other things that are more important to them. So just recognize that and it because it's and own it because it's not your decision to make.
Yeah, the good point, Kristen. And you said exactly the two most important words, I think, for the role of the certified divorce financial analyst, and that's informed decision. We can provide you with the analysis to show you kind of mathematically, monetarily, from a budget perspective, what this might look for you, but you a client have your own intangibles that you're bringing into this. And so you need to be able to apply our analysis to your own needs and wants, and how you make an informed decision. And you're right, they can look very different than what another client would go through given the exact same fact pattern. But really the important part of working with clients is giving them the space to make their own informed decisions. Well said.
Having that information, I feel like takes away so much of this fear. It's a fear of the unknown. And a certified divorce financial analyst can give you all of the answers to all the questions that they have, tell you exactly what this is going to look like. And then you can make your choices as to how you want to approach the situation once you have that information. And I just really emphasize enough that the cost benefit of that is huge. And so I know a lot of people are sitting here saying, well, I paid a big retainer to my attorney. And obviously money is important and obviously the budget is important. But I really think people need to start with the divorce financial analyst first. That needs to be where you go first, and get the data and the information and the plan in place, and then bring in the legal counsel. The legal counsel is an important part of this process. And I think at some point, um, no divorce should proceed without them. But you can also be strategic about their involvement as well. So, and a certified divorce financial analyst can help you understand when and where it makes sense to bring them in, just like the other divorce professionals that can help you. So I think it can be a less expensive process and one that yields better results and take away a lot of that fear that you have with all of these questions. So I just want to thank you again. Viewers, if you have any questions for our next episode, you'll find a link below where you can write in questions, and we will try to get to those next time. For anyone who has more interest in talking to John, you can find him at zendivorcesolutions.com. He's in California, and he is out there doing this work. And if you're in that area and you're interested in collaborative law, or hiring a certified divorce financial analyst, he would certainly be a good resource for you. So I definitely appreciate your time today. And thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you on our next episode.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.